I have never met Michael, but I love Michael now. What a time to be alive. Seemingly impossible has become possible. We seem limitless in our possibilities. Also, full of hatred and fear at the same time as joy and hope. This is an interesting time for our nation, for humanity as a whole. And what a prompt for Net Impact to give. How will you make history? We're all here because we want a future that's better than our past, and we want a present that involves meaningful work where we can hopefully create that future. But how? How are we going to do this? Don't give up. Don't give up. It seems simple, but I want to recognize and I want to talk through today how it really isn't simple. People don't stop caring. Really rational things happen. I think in the media a lot we hear about these, incredible overnight successes, and there are inevitably going to be unicorns. But one of the things, for example, partners at Y Combinator, who's, by the way, incubated many of these companies, always said, to the cohorts that go through the program, is if you're not willing to give at least 8 to 10 years, you might as well give up. Because while there's a unicorn that you're going to see on the cover of all the magazines and read about and wish that that is you, for the vast majority of us who want to have an impact, who want to see change, be it for-profit, nonprofit, something in between, it's going to take a lot of years. I've been working on SIRIUM for 5 years. We are still not national, much to my chagrin. And we still have probably a good 5 years to go. The work that we are doing, that we're all hoping to do, it is not a straight line. And let's just be real, FOMO is real. There is an inevitable fear of missing out when you look at the path that you choose sometimes against your peers. And there are really seductive career paths out there. I can talk about, for me personally, the thought of going to medical school, which I would have been the first doctor in my family ever. The thought of having the next 12 years of my life planned out at the age of 18. Wow. And also to be in a profession where I could have been very well respected and a very conventional success so that I could feel good about what I had accomplished. Another thing that often happens is, we become numb over time. There's a lot of inequality out there. There's a lot of inequity. And to be honest, sometimes it feels overwhelming. We worry about our personal finances. We worry about our family's finances. We worry about our partner's finances. We worry about future children's finances. We worry about the hours that we're spending. And we also worry that this is just a drop in the bucket. What happens if the work that you're doing is just a drop in the bucket of humanity's ills? These are real fears, and these are real reasons to be concerned, and to sometimes not have enough in you or feel like that. I worry about the people that I can't help. I worry about the patients that I've failed because I haven't executed SIRIUM to the best that it could be. I worry that I've been too conservative in the execution of our vision. And these are all legitimate fears because life is hard and it gets harder. You work really, really hard, and you know what's not fair? Sometimes when the finances and the accolades and the attaboys don't come your way or don't go where they're deserved. And this happens more than we are all willing to admit, and sometimes it hurts and it matters, and it's not fair. So what's really important is to understand the why. Okay. The why may change, and it may evolve. And I think sorry. This is, okay. So, sorry, we skipped that one, but if we could go back a slide, actually. So I love this quote from my favorite singer, Miss Lauryn Hill, who says, look, fantasy is what people want, but reality is what they need. She goes on to say, and I'm done with giving the fantasy part. But this is, I want to spend some time talking about what I've learned over the past 5 years of doing this work. We all start with saying this: I want to help people. We start because we care. And it may sound a little cliche, but that's what we've all been thinking at some point. For me, it's a little bit more nuanced, obviously. I wanted to help people of color. I wanted to help low-income communities. I grew up in West Philadelphia, about 5 miles from here. And the class differences that you can see on a block-by-block basis, literally one block full of these beautiful stone buildings and the next block full of 2 crack houses. This is the reality of what I grew up around. And this has empowered me and made me feel like I want to have an impact in the world to stop this. It starts here for many of us. We have this personal connection, or we have experiences volunteering. For me, it was volunteering in clinics where I'd meet patients like Maria, who was working and going to school at night and couldn't afford the $200 it would cost her every month for her asthma inhaler and blood pressure medicine. Meeting people like Cynthia, who had just been laid off, and then her husband had a stroke, and she could no longer afford the medicine she needed for her husband post-stroke to be able to leave the hospital and recover. Or Jinky, who had been laid off, and the cost of healthcare for her family per month was $700, and she was struggling to afford the asthma inhaler her son needed to stay out of the hospital. This was very early in my career, and so I figured, if not now, when? So I decided to take the risk. I was fortunate because I found amazing co-founders who were equally passionate about this really exciting idea and also enraged by this giant social issue. So just briefly, SIRIUM uses technology to connect surplus unused medicine with community clinics. The reason that we're doing this is 1 in 4 people in the United States right now, that's 50 million adults, working age adults, can't afford the prescription drugs that they need to stay healthy. We figured we'd use technology to help bridge that gap. Because right now, what happens when someone who's uninsured or underinsured can't get the medicine they need? It costs our healthcare system over $100 billion every year in avoidable emergency room visits, hospitalizations. This is costing our health system so much money, and it's costing our workforce money because folks, when they're sick, can't go to work. And then what happens? Their family suffers, their job suffers, our economy suffers. This is a major societal issue. So, it was very scary at the same time, and I didn't have the financial safety net. And it's really easy to gloss over the details about how this is my passion and this is my purpose in life. And it's easy to tell that story when things are going well. And I'll admit, a lot of things for SIRIUM have gone really well. That's part of the reason I think I'm on this stage. And it's easy when things are going well. We built this from a student group to an organization that's now done $7 million of medicine, $2.5 million this year alone of recurring annual surplus medicine going through our system. And these awards and accolades, they feel good, don't get me wrong. They feel good, and it helps you to feel connected and feel validated in the work that you're doing. But this work is not glamorous. It's not glamorous. I'll give you a few examples of how unglamorous it became. We built this, myself and my 2 co-founders, we built this idea, we're going to have this tech platform. It's going to be like the Match.com or the eBay. We're going to have all these amazing comment features, and people can talk back and forth, and they can rate each other. We were just going crazy with features. We were certain of ourselves and certain of our idea. So we sent hundreds of emails out to facilities saying, you're going to do this. This is going to be awesome. We're going to change the world, guys. We did not get a single reply to any of the emails that we sent out. So we sent more. We replied back and said, no, this is really going to be game-changing. Please do this. And we got nothing. So one day, one of us got the bright idea that we were actually going to pick up the phone and call someone. We were going to get out of our email-ridden, path and actually pick up the phone and call someone. And this was an aha for us. It seems very, very simple now. But the doctors, the nurses, the pharmacists that we were working with don't really check their email, but they will answer a phone. So we finally got people interested. We got them interested in this idea that we're going to save them time, save them money. We're basically going to implement a recycling program so they can donate their medicine instead of destroying it. That sounds great, right? So next, we decided to really focus in on the tech issues, like what is the perfect platform? We spent literally months building features that we thought were amazing. But what we learned was that in our case, technology was really being used to do something, to enable to do something in real life. We basically just needed the platform and able to make things happen, but really the people who were donating or receiving medicine, they're seeing patients all day. They just want to know that the medicine's going to the right place. So, I mean, we really spent and wasted a lot of our time just working in this box. Then we finally got people interested when we started shadowing people, shadowing our customers, getting to know them, really trying to figure things out with them as partners. And we thought we were getting somewhere. And then what happens? We have this scaling problem where there's conflicting laws. There's a statute on the book that says, of course you can donate your unused medicine, but there's a regulation that says you can't. For folks who've been working in the sector for a while, you know once you hit regulations, you kind of just you sigh because you say, well, how many months is this going to take to resolve? It took us several months to do contracting and to literally get an update that said, yes, this law was passed, and now, yes, you can donate. That already was legal, but we're going to update this rule now that says you can do it. That took months. While I was doing this, I had friends who were graduating from medical school, business school, law school, getting exciting careers in banking, in finance, in consulting. And I was sitting here waiting for our lawyers to get a contract together so we could sign on one organization to donate their unused medicine. It's honestly really demoralizing. And so that really takes me to the point of you get to this point where you start saying to yourself, how much do you really care? Like, I mean, really care. You have to be honest about how much the accolades matter. How much does the money matter? How much do you want to be in the trenches or supporting people who want to be in the trenches? And there's no judgment around any of these. It really is a personal decision that everyone in this room should make and really be honest with yourself about. For me, it was medical school. I actually deferred for 3 straight years. It took me 3 straight years to think about why I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and to kind of realize that what I was looking for was validation and a conventional success. Because the work that we do is very amorphous, and it's really hard to judge success sometimes in this sector when everything seems to be going wrong in the world. And the prizes and the awards and that stuff boosts you. But more than that, what ends up really boosting you are the people around you. My team is amazing. My co-founders are amazing. Our core team is amazing. I can honestly say that some days I get up and go to the office because of them. We do fun activities. And like some days it gets really hard, and this is the reason we can goofily stand outside of our office and hold boxes and have a photo shoot just for us to talk about medicine donation. So, I mean, this is really sometimes what happens and what gets you moving. And my co-founder, George, actually has a great phrase that he always says, Kiah, sometimes when it gets really bad, motivation has got to follow the motion. Some days it's about putting one foot in front of the other and you keep on going. Because changing the status quo is hard. It is extremely hard. But the longer I've been doing this, the more I realize just how lucky I am to be doing this work. It really is the greatest privilege of my life to be able to even attempt to make a difference in this world. This work is a privilege. And even though I never feel up to the challenge quite, it really is a privilege to be able to try to make a difference in this world. I have this conversation with my friend Jamelia, who's actually a prisoner's rights advocate. And we talk about how challenging this work is, but also how rewarding. So we kind of have this back and forth about the challenge, but the reward, and it's doing great, but it's so hard, and look at everyone else, and they have more money, or they have more security, and what are we doing with our lives? But then we talk about what inevitably happens at every conference that we go to, or every time we go to a reunion, or we meet up with any other colleagues who aren't doing social good. We have what we call these confessionals, where they inevitably pull us aside, and they have a very conventional, career in like corporate law or finance or something like that. They always pull us aside and say, man, I really wish I could be doing something like what you're doing. Like my job is good and everything, but what I really want to be doing is blank, blank, blank. Insert the thing that they actually care about in their community or in the world. And we have these confessionals, and I have to tell you, every single time I have one of these confessionals, it validates the work that I'm doing. Because rather than me having to pull someone aside and tell them about my hopes and dreams for this world, I get to hopefully help create those. So each time this happens, each time I feel like I'm having a confessional with someone, I am reminded at the incredible privilege that I have. And not just the privilege that I have to do this work, but actually the privilege and responsibility to not do it small. And I think, Michael, you touched amazingly on that. I started this work wanting to do good. That's not enough. Changing systems is what we have to be focused on. Changing the status quo is really, really hard. Early on, I failed to dream big enough. $2.5 million of medicine every year is good, but $100 million of medicine is better. You know, 4 states, working in 4 states is good, but 40 is where we need to be. We have to create the future that we want to see in this world. And, you know, it starts in this room. It starts with you. It starts with you getting real honest with what you want to do, who you want to be, and the life that you want to have. I want to leave you with just a couple notes. So number 1, don't become numb. It's easy to do that because life is hard, the world is hard, things are going to happen in your life. Don't become numb. Resist that urge. Caring is not enough. It's not enough to just care. If you're not willing to do something, if you're not willing to act on it, guess what? You actually don't care enough. But admit that. 3, this work is not glamorous. My co-founders and I, to do these cold calls to build our pilot program, we actually had to invent something we called the power hour, which was not drinking. It was actually us sitting in a giant room across from each other in like a little triangle and making cold calls for an hour straight, because there's nothing quite like getting hung up on being told, oh, I'm not interested, or this sounds kind of illegal and scammy, so I'm just not going to do this. There's nothing like having that happen to 3 Stanford graduates who have combined, I think, like 6 degrees. It's like the most humbling experience when you realize your degrees don't mean nothing when you're trying to build a company. They really don't. Like, that nurse doesn't care. She thinks it's illegal, she's hanging up on the phone with you, and that's what it is. But this is how you build these companies sometimes. It is not glamorous work. And finally, don't play small. This work is a privilege. It really is. We are privileged to be in this room to even think about how we can change the world for a better. Do not play small with it. You have an obligation to think big. And finally, vote. Vote, vote, vote. Vote early. If I could tell you to vote often, I would, but you get 1 vote. Please exercise it. Vote, vote, vote. Thank you.